This paper goes through all the topics that you need to know for paper 2 using the advanced information that the exam boards have released. So grab your pens, grab your notepads and make some good notes. Let's go. We're going to start from the questions at the back and work our way down all the way to question 1. So 50 people were asked which fruits they liked from apples, bananas and oranges. And you're given a list of things that people like. So for example, 11 people like all 3 fruits. 33 people like apples, 6 like apples and bananas but not oranges, so on and so forth. So this question seems to be a question that will be using Venn diagrams. So let's draw 3 circles for apples, bananas and oranges. So here we have our 3 circles inside the Venn diagram. So let's go ahead and label this. So apples, let's call this one bananas, and this one oranges. So where do we begin? Well, you can see that it says 11 people like all 3 fruits. And it's important when you have a Venn diagram that you try to start in the middle, which is going to be right here. So we can go ahead and write 11 right there. Next, it says 33 people like apples. Now, this 33 is this big circle right there. This represents all the people that like apples, which means this 11 plus here, plus there, and plus that is going to have to equal 33. So we can't do that right now. But if you read the next sentence, it says 6 people like apples and bananas, but not oranges. So where does that go? Well, this is apples and bananas and not oranges. So we can go ahead and write 6 right there. And the next sentence says that 15 people like bananas and oranges. So here we have our banana circle and here we have our orange circle, which means that all of this has to represent 15. Now, seeing as we've already got 11 in here, we have to take that 15 minus 11. So let's go ahead and do the working out for this. So 15 minus 11, that gives us 4. So we can write 4 in here. If you continue to read, it says 5 of the people do not like any of the fruits. That means they don't like apples, bananas, or oranges. They cannot go in any of the circles, which means they have to go outside. So we can write that right there. Next, it says all 25 people who like oranges like at least one other fruit. So we know now that 25 people like oranges. That means this entire circle has to represent 25. But it does mention that all 25 people like at least one other fruit, which means they don't exclusively like oranges only, which would have gone in this section right here. So that 25 will be all of this. So we can do 25 minus the 11 minus the 4, which is simply those 2 values, and we get 10. So 10 will go right there. And as mentioned already, it means that 0 people like oranges only. So we could write 0 in there as well. Now you can see that the Venn diagram is starting to get filled up. We can now go back to the 33 people that like apples and fill this in. So this circle, all of that has to represent 33. So in order to find out how many people like apples only, we do 33, take away the 6, take away the 11, take away the 10. So let's go ahead and write that now. So we have 33 minus 6 minus 11 minus 10, giving us 6. So we could write 6 right there. 6 people only like apples. Now there's only one region left to fill in, which is the people that like bananas only. Now, seeing as all the other regions are already filled in, we can now go back and find out how many people like bananas only. How? We go back to the question. It says that 50 people were asked in total. That means this entire Venn diagram has to be representative of 50 people. So in order to find out how many people like bananas only, we do 50 minus all of these other values. So 50 minus 6 minus 11 minus 10 minus the 4 and minus the 5, and that gives us a total of 8. So we can go in here now and write 8. And now we have completed the Venn diagram. The question goes on to say that 2 of the 50 people are chosen at random. work out the probability that they both like bananas. Also, a point to note here is that this question could have been a little bit more clearer by asking the question whether they only like bananas only. So we're going to go ahead and assume this. So we're going to write down bananas only. So what is the probability that they like bananas only? Let's go down here. So the probability of them liking bananas only, we can go ahead and write 8 out of 50, which is the probability that they only like bananas, times by the probability that the second person likes bananas, which is going to be 7 out of 49. Remember, we have to take 1 away from the total amount of 50 people, and that also means 1 away from the person who already liked bananas, which was 7. Now we just go ahead and calculate that, and that gives us 56 over 2,450, which can be further simplified to 4 over 175. Now, I did mention that this question needed a little bit of clarification, and I wrote down here that they only like bananas only. What if it wasn't only bananas? What if the question was just asking how many people like bananas? So a second scenario could be if not only bananas, we will get 29 out of the 50, which is simply all of that, times by 28 out of 49. And that gives us 812 over 2,450, and that equals 58 over 175. And they are your two possible answers. Question 20. Work out the value of x in this diagram, giving your answer to one decimal place. So we want to find out what this value of x, this angle, is. We have two separate triangles to work with. Let's go ahead and draw the triangle that we want to work on, which is the first triangle here with the angle x. So we have x here, we have 10 centimeters, 13 centimeters, and we want to find what this angle right there is. Now we can use the cosine rule to do this, but we need a third side right there, which we don't have. So we will need to go ahead and find that. So how do we do that? We can use the second triangle. So let's go ahead and draw that. So here is the second triangle. We are trying to find the length here, which is the same as the question mark on the other triangle. Now we can start off by finding this third angle as well, and we can do that by using the angles in a triangle, add up to 180. So in order to find this, we'll do 180 minus 71 minus 53, and that gives us 56 degrees. So this is 56 degrees. Now we have three angles and we have a side, and we can use the sine rule in order to find this missing length. So we have a pair right there and we have a pair right there. So we can do x over sine 56 is equal to 9 over sine 71. We can just rearrange this now in terms of x. So we get x is equal to 9 times by sine 56 divided by sine 71. And that gives us 7.891 ... We'll keep some of this answer in order not to lose our accuracy, because the final answer wants to be rounded to one decimal place. So we can now go back to the first triangle and add that new length in. Next, let's go ahead and label this triangle now. So we can call this A, we can call this small a, we can call this angle B and this side B, and we can call this C, and we can call this side C as well. And we can use the cosine rule for angles, which is cos A is equal to B squared plus C squared minus A squared all over 2BC. So our cos A is going to be cos x is equal to 10 squared plus 13 squared minus 7.891 squared all over 2 times 10 times 13. And if we work out the numerator and denominator separately, on the top we get 206.732119, and on the bottom we get 260, And all we now need to do is the inverse of cos. So x will be equal to inverse cos, and just put the value of this in here, and x is equal to 37.3 degrees to 1 decimal place. And that's your answer for x. Question 19. We have a circle lying on a tangent and we have a triangle inside. So we are told that C, D and E are points on a circle, center is O. AEB is a tangent to the circle at E. We are told that length CD is equal to length DE, and that is also stated by these lines right there. And we are told that the angle AEC, which is right there, is equal to x. The question does want us to work out the size of angle OED, so we have OED right there. That's what we want to work towards. So what can we do? First of all, let's go ahead and label everything. So we are told that this is angle X. We know that this is 90 degrees because the tangent meets the radius of a circle at 90 degrees. And using the alternate segment theorem, this will also be the same as X. So we can write X right there. So we have this isosceles triangle, which means those two angles are equal. Let's go ahead and draw out this isosceles triangle separately. So this is D, this is C, this is E, this is Y, and this is X. Let's put those marks in. So all I've done is drawn this triangle separately right there. So how do I find these two angles which I've called Y? Well, we know the angles in a triangle add up to 180. So we can do 180, take away the X, and then divide that by 2. So 180 minus X divided by 2 is the value of 1y. So we could write that right there. Remember, it says give reasons for each stage of your working. So the first thing that we did use is the alternate segment theorem, and this is isosceles triangle. Now, earlier we said that this was 90 degrees. Well, if this is 90 degrees, this is also going to be 90 degrees. So what we can write down now is that angle AEO is 90 degrees. So here we have just written down the reason that angle AEO is 90 because the tangent meets the radius at 90. This also means that the angle OEC right there is going to be 90 minus the x. So angle OEC is 90 minus the x. So therefore OED is going to be y minus OEC. So once again, just to go over that again, we are calculating this value right there. This was y because it's an isosceles triangle. Both of these are our y values, which is right there, and y is equal to that. So in order to find this angle right there, we are going to do y minus angle OEC, which we know is 90 minus x. So therefore we have y minus 90 minus x. But we know the value of y. Y is 180 minus x divided by 2, so we can replace that right there. So we have 180 minus x over 2 minus 90 minus x. Let's put that in a bracket because when the signs come out, they will change. Let's go ahead and simplify this as well. So we can have 90 minus a half x. All I've done is divided this by 2, giving me that now. And let's go and expand that bracket. So we have minus 90 come out plus x. So the 90 minus 90 will disappear, giving us 0. And we're left with minus a half x plus x, which is simply half x. And that's your angle OED. Okay, question 18. We are shown a graph f of x and we are given the maximum point, which is minus 2, 1. We are told to write down the coordinates of the turning point of the curve with the equation y equals f of x plus 3. So what does a plus 3 outside do? It shifts our graph up by 3. So this coordinate right here, the x will remain the same. This will just go up by 3, which will only change the y coordinate of 1. So this will now become -2, 4. And for part B, we are told that there is a negative transformation right there and the +2 inside the bracket. The +2 inside the bracket means it goes this way by 2, and the negative will mean a reflection in the x-axis. So let's start off with our shift by 2. So this will go this way by 2, giving us -4 and 1. And then if we have a reflection in the x-axis, that means that this will reflect in this line here, looking like this. So the x-coordinate will become a negative. So we have -4, -1 as our answer for the coordinates of the turning point. Question 17. Sketch the graph of y is equal to 2 sine x for the region 0 to 360. So what happens when you have this 2 right there? It multiplies all the y coordinates by 2. Now originally the sine graph goes up to 1 and the minimum point is -1. So it looks like that. But now it will get multiplied by 2, which means it will be 2 and -2. So we know that sine of 90 is usually 1, so it will be 2 now. 180 will be 0, 270 usually is -1 but will now be -2, and 360 will go back to 0, giving us this. Question 16. The diagram shows a rectangle. All the measurements are in centimeters. The area of the rectangle is less than 45 centimeters squared. Show that 2x squared plus 13x minus 24 is less than 0. Okay, let's go ahead and find the area of our rectangle. So we multiply the length by the width. So it's going to be 2x plus 7 multiplied by x plus 3. And we know that this is going to be less than 45 centimeters. So we could write that right there. Let's go ahead and expand our brackets. So we get 2x squared plus 6x plus 7x plus 21 less than 45. Let's take everything over to one side and also simplify. That gives us 2x squared plus 13x minus 24 is less than 0. And that's our answer that it wanted us to show. The question goes on to say, find the range of possible values of x. That is simply to solve this inequality. Now, to solve this, we can treat the less than sign as an equal sign for now. So we can have 2x squared plus 13x minus 24 equal to 0, and go ahead and solve this as we would with any quadratic. You can go ahead and use any method that you know to solve quadratics, and you should end up with two brackets. In one of them you'll get 2x minus 3, and in the other one you'll get x plus 8. So we know that the value of x is 3 over 2 and minus 8. These are our critical values. We'll use them to draw a quick sketch of a quadratic. So we have minus 8 here, we have 3 over 2. It's a positive quadratic because this is positive, so we will get this shape. Now if you remember, it was less than 0, so our y values have to be less than 0, which is all of this. So normally what we'll get from here is that x is less than 3 over 2 and greater than minus 8. However, if you go back to the question, we have the lengths, and one of the lengths is x plus 3. So we're going to test this. So since we have one of the lengths as x plus 3, we will see that we cannot have minus 3. So all the lengths have got to be greater than minus 3, otherwise we are going to end up with 0, and you can't have a 0 length. So therefore our final answer will be x is less than 3 over 2 and greater than minus 3. Question 15. The diagram shows a solid shape. The shape is a hemisphere on top of a cylinder. The solid shape is placed on a table. The solid exerts a force of 4 newtons on the table. The pressure on the table is 100 newton meter squared, and the height of the cylinder is 45 centimeters. Work out the total volume of the solid shape. And we are given the volume of a sphere and the formula for pressure, which is force over area. Where do we begin with this question? Let's go and zoom out a little bit here so we can have more working space. So we'll begin by finding the total volume of this shape. So the total volume is going to be equal to the hemisphere plus the volume of our cylinder. So the hemisphere is this and our cylinder is this. So the volume of a hemisphere is going to be half of the volume of a sphere, because we can just cut this in half like that. So we'll have a half times by 4 over 3 pi r cubed, and the volume of a cylinder is going to be the base, which is a circle, so pi times r squared, times by the height, which is 45. Now we don't know the value of our radius, which is the same for both of the hemisphere and our cylinder. But we do know that we have this formula to work with, which has the area. And we are told that the pressure on the table is 100 newton meter squared. So we can rearrange this formula so that we can make area our subject, and using that we can find our radius. So let's go ahead and do that. So using the pressure formula, so pressure is equal to force divided by area, we can rearrange this so that we can have area is equal to force divided by pressure. We know that the solid exerts a force of 4 newtons, so that would be 4 divided by the pressure, which is 100. So there we have our area. This simplifies to 1 over 25 meter squared. So now we can find our radius. So just to recap, this area right there is the area of this, and obviously the area of that as well. So the area of a circle is pi r squared. We know that this area is 1 over 25. That's going to be equal to pi times r squared. If we rearrange this so that r squared is our subject, we have 1 over 25 divided by pi. And this is the same as writing r squared is equal to 1 over 25 times by 1 over pi, which is simply 1 over 25 pi. So r squared is equal to 1 over 25 pi. And if we take the square root of this, so r is going to be equal to the square root of 1 over 25 pi, we get the value of r, which is 0.1128 ... meters. Now, I need to alert you to something very, very important that you may miss in a question like this. If you go back to the question, we are given the pressure on the table in Newton meter squared, which means this is all good, this is correct, but the height of the cylinder is given to us in centimeters. So this means that we need to convert our radius here, which is in meters, into centimeters. How? By multiplying by 100. So in order to have centimeters, we will multiply by 100, giving us r is equal to 11.28, and that's our centimeters. So be very careful with conversion of units in a question like this. Now it's getting very crowded, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make all of this smaller, and now I have more working space. So our total volume of our shape is going to be this hemisphere plus the cylinder, and we now know the value of our radius, so we can just go ahead and put that in. So a half times 4 over 3 times by pi times by radius cubed, so 11.28, we will know that now, plus the cylinder, which is pi times by radius squared, so 11.28 squared times by 45. And we get a total. If you do all of this on your calculators, in fact, it's probably better not to do that. Just work each one of them out individually and minimize your potential mistakes in a test. So let's go ahead and work those out separately. So you get 3005.978795 for our hemisphere, plus our cylinder, which should give you 17987.90502. And now if you add those up, you should get a total of 2099.3888382. And if you round this to one decimal place, you get 20993.9, and that's in centimeter cubed. And that's your final answer. The question hasn't given us any indication of what it wants us to round to. I've just chosen to round to one decimal place. Okay, question 14. Given that f of x is equal to 2x minus 4 and gx is equal to 3x plus 5, A, find gf3. You could do this in one of two ways. You could either find gf as an expression and then substitute the value of 3 in, or you can sub in 3 into f first because it's closer to the bracket, and then get that answer and then substitute it in to g. Let's go ahead and use that method. So we're going to find f3, and f3 is going to be 2 times 3 minus 4. All we are doing is putting that 3 wherever we see our x. And that gives us an answer of 2. So now we'll plug this into g, and that gives us 3 times by 2 plus 5. So we are now substituting this 2 for this x, and that gives us a total of 11. So the answer is 11. Part B, it says work out an expression for the inverse of f. So what we can do is, instead of writing f of x, we can write down y. So y is equal to 2x minus 4, and all we are going to do is make x our subject. So we can take the 4 over to the other side, giving us y plus 4 equals to 2x, and x is going to be y plus 4 divided by 2. So the inverse of f of x is going to be x plus 4. We're just replacing the y with the x over 2. And lastly, it says solve f of x is equal to g of x. So we just need to equate these two expressions. So therefore 2x minus 4 is going to be equal to 3x plus 5. And we go ahead and just solve this now. So what we're going to do is we are going to take the smaller 2x over onto this side, and we're going to take this 5 over onto that side. So what do we get? On this side we are going to have 3x minus 2x, which is just x, and on the other side we are going to have minus 4 minus 5, giving us minus 9. So therefore x is equal to minus 9. Okay, so question 13. It takes 30 builders 12 days to complete a job. Work out how many days it will take 40 builders to complete the same job. We can start off by writing 30 builders take 12 days, and we want to know how many days 40 builders will take. Okay, so let's go down to one builder. How many days will it take one builder to do this job? So 30 divided by 30 gives us 1. So on the other side, we will multiply by 30 because it's going to take them a longer time. A mistake that students often make is that they don't realize this is an indirect proportion question, and they do what they do on this side on the other side, and it won't make sense because you're going to do 12 divided by 30 and you're going to get a very, very small number, and it don't make sense for one builder to do something that would take 30 builders 12 days in less time. So 12 times by 30 gives us 360 days, and that makes sense because one builder will require a lot longer to do this job. And we just go back up to 40 on this side, so we'll multiply by 40, and again we'll divide this side by 40. So 360 divided by 40, and that gives us 9 days. And that makes sense because if it takes 30 builders 12 days, then 40 builders will take less time. Part B, it says write down any assumption you made in part A. Well, the assumption is that the builders will all be working at the same rate. So we could write that down. Okay, question 12. The table shows some information about times in minutes it took some boys to complete a puzzle. And we are given the interquartile range, minimum, median, upper quartile, and the maximum. And it wants us to draw a box plot for this information. So for this question, you have to work out what each of the small boxes mean. So you can see here that you have 15 and 20, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 small boxes to go across, which will indicate that 2 of these is equal to 1. So that's going to be 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. We want 18, so that's going to be right there. Next, let's put in the upper quartile, which is 23. So it's going to be 21, 22, 23, right there. We know that the maximum is 29, so 29 will be right there, and it's going to be a smaller line. And we know that the minimum value is 12, so 12, that's going to be 11, 12, right there. Again, a smaller line than the others. So this is what we have so far. Now, we are not given the lower quartile, but we can work out the lower quartile by using the information of the upper quartile and the interquartile range. The interquartile range is the upper quartile minus the lower quartile, and the interquartile range has been given to us as 8, which would mean from this value right here, which is the upper quartile, we'll go back by 8. So the lower quartile is going to be 23 minus the interquartile range, which is 8, and that gives us 15. So we can go and mark 15 as our lower quartile right there. We can go ahead and complete our box now. And there we have our completed box plot. Part B of this question says compare the distribution of girls' times and the boys' times. And it's given us the girls' box plot as well. So with these questions, you need to have at least 2 points because this question has 2 marks. So the first thing that we can compare is our interquartile range. You can see that the girls have a smaller interquartile range compared to the boys. So we can write down that the boys' IQR is larger. This means that the boys are less consistent than the girls. Secondly, we can look at the median value. Now, the median value for the boys is 16 and the median value for the girls is 14, which means that the girls were quicker in completing the puzzle. So we can write down median of girls is lower than the boys, meaning that the girls were quicker on average. So that should get you your 2 marks. Question 11. Carlos wants to find an estimate for the number of ants in a colony. He catches 60 ants from the colony and marks each one with a die. He then returns the ants to the colony. A week later, he comes back and he catches another 60 ants. 8 of these ants are marked with the die. Work out an estimate for the number of ants in the colony. Right, so let's begin with his first catch, which was he caught 60. So 60 out of the total number of ants in the colony, which we don't know, so we're going to call it n. So we have 60 over n for the first part of our equation. And we're going to make this equal to what he did a week later, where he caught 60 ants and he found that 8 of them were marked with a die. So 8 out of the 60 that he caught can go on as our second part of our equation. All we have to do now is to make n the subject of this equation. How do we do that? We can just cross multiply. So we'll multiply this n up here and we'll multiply this up there, and then finally we'll divide by 8, giving us n is equal to 60 times 60 divided by 8, and that we can work out on our calculators as 450. So there are 450 ants in the colony as an estimate. Carlos assumes that none of the marks had been rubbed off. If Carlos's assumption is wrong, explain what effect this would have on your answer to part A. So what does that mean? It means that some of the ants had been marked, captured, but not recorded. So the division would have been by a larger number other than 8, giving you a smaller population overall. I'll repeat that once more. Carlos assumes that none of the marks had been rubbed off. So that means they could have been rubbed off. And therefore, when he found that 8 of them had been marked with a die, when he captured the 60, it means that some of them may have had the die, but it got rubbed off. So this number here could have been much larger. This number right there, we are dividing by 8. It means if this was a larger value, then overall, this would have been a smaller value, giving us a smaller population for the ants. So this is an overestimation. So this is something that you could write down and say that it has been overestimated. Okay, question 10. Find the equation of the line that is parallel to this equation 2x plus 5y is equal to 10, which passes through 0 minus 3. First things first, let's get this into the form y equals mx plus c so we can clearly see what our gradient is. So in order to do that, we have to take the 2x over to the other side, giving us 5y is equal to minus 2x plus 10, and then divide by 5. So we get minus 2 over 5x plus 10 over 5 is 2. So since the equation of this line is parallel to this line, we know that we are going to have an equation with the same gradient. So y is equal to minus 2 over 5x plus c. And we just need to find what the value of c is by substituting the point that it passes through. So y is going to be minus 3 and x is going to be 0. So minus 2 over 5 times by 0 plus c. This will all cancel, giving us c is equal to minus 3. So therefore the equation is going to be minus 2 over 5x minus 3. Okay, question 9. Lucy is 3 times as old as Alex. Lucy is 7 years older than Megan, and the sum of their ages is 126. Find the ratio of Alex's age to Lucy's age to Megan's age. So since we know that Lucy is 3 times as old as Alex, that would mean that L for Lucy, is going to be 3 times A, which is Alex's age. And we know that Lucy is 7 years older than Megan, so it would also mean that Lucy is M plus 7. We also know that the sum of their ages, that means L plus A plus M, is equal to 126. Okay, so let's go ahead and equate these two because both of them are equal to L. So we have 3A is equal to M plus 7. So let's go ahead and make M our subject here. So M is going to be equal to 3A, and we're going to take the 7 over to the other side, so minus 7. So now we know the age of Megan. Let's go ahead and use this now to make an equation. So L, I'm going to be using this version of Lucy's age rather than this one, so I can have all A's in my equation. So L is going to be 3A plus A, the age of Alex is going to be just A, plus the age of Megan, which we now know is 3A minus 7. Let's just put that in quotation marks. And that's equal to 126. Next, we are going to add all our A's, so that gives us 7A, and we've got minus 7 is equal to 126. We're going to take this minus 7 to the other side by adding 7, so we have 7A is equal to 126 plus 7 is 133, and finally we are going to divide both sides by 7, giving us 19. So the age of Alex is 19 years old. Now that we know the age of Alex is 19, we can find Megan's age. That's going to be 3 times 19 minus 7, giving us 50. So Megan is 50 years old, and Lucy is going to be 3 times 19, giving us 57 years old. So if you want to write down the ratio of their ages, so Alex's age to Lucy's age to Megan's age, we now have 19 dot dot 57 dot dot 50. And that's our final answer. Okay, question 8. It says use your calculator to work out that expression. Write down all the figures on your calculator display. Now, good practice for this is to work out everything individually so you don't make any mistakes. So if you work out the top, so you have tan 80 plus 1 on your calculator. Make sure you're in degrees mode as well. So you get 6.67128.182. And then you work out the second part. So tan 80 minus 1, and that gives you 4.67128182. Now you can work out what's inside the square root, and that gives us the square root of 1.428148,007. Finally, if you square root your answer, you get 1.19505146, and that is all the figures on the calculator display. Next, it says write down your answer to part A, correct to 3 significant figures, and that's going to be 1.20. Here's our third significant figure, but because of this 5, it will make this go up to a 10, and that will become a 0 for this one and a 2 for that one, giving us 1.20 to 3SF. Now, a point to note here, usually if you make a mistake with part A, but you correctly round to 3SF, you should earn that mark. But I advise you not to make that mistake because you want all 3 marks. Question 7. The diagram shows a patio in the shape of a rectangle. Jack wants to cover the patio with paving slabs. Each paving slab is a square of side 40 centimeters. The paving slabs cost £7.59 each, and Jack has £300 to spend on paving slabs. Does he have enough money to cover the patio with paving slabs? Now, where do we begin? A point to note here, be very careful once again. Look, you're given these as meters, and you're told that the paving slabs are in centimeters. So what you can go ahead and do now is convert the meters into centimeters, and we know that there are 100 centimeters in 1 meter. So this will get multiplied by 100, so you have 360 centimeters here and 160 centimeters there. Now we are good to go. Let's go ahead and work out the total area of our patio, and that's just going to be the area of a rectangle. So area of our patio is going to be 360 times by 160, and that gives us 57,600 centimeter squared. So 57,600 centimeter squared. Now we'll work out the area of each paving slab, which we know is a square of side 40 centimeters. So area of each slab is 40 times 40, giving us 1,600 centimeter squared. So we're going to cover this area, and each paving slab is this area. So the number of slabs we need is going to be 57,600 divided by 1,600. And if you work that out, that gives us 36 slabs required. So each of these slabs costs £7.59 each. So the cost of 36 slabs would be 36 times by £7.59, and that gives us £273.24. So £300 is enough. Okay, so question 6. It says, in London, potatoes cost 45p per pound. In Dublin, potatoes cost €1.48 per kilogram. It's giving you the conversion for kilograms to pounds the weight and pounds sterling currency to euros. In which city are potatoes better value for money, London or Dublin? You must show all your work in. There is more than one way to do this, but I'll show you one method where I will start off by looking at Dublin prices and converting this into pounds per kilo. So we are told that in Dublin, the price of potatoes is 1.48 euros per kilo, and now we'll make this into pounds per kilo. So how do you do that? Well, simply the price that you pay is 1.48, and we'll just convert that by dividing by 1.15, which is pounds to euros. And that gives us £1.29 to 2 decimal places. We are dealing with money, so you have to round to 2 decimal places. So £1.29 is per kilo for the price of potatoes in Dublin. Now, the London prices are given to you in pounds. So what we'll do for London prices is convert our pounds into kilos. So rather than having pounds per pound in weight, we're now going to have pound per kilo. How? We are going to do 0.45 and times by 2.2. Remember, 0.45 is the price you pay per pound in weight. So by multiplying by 2.2, you are converting the price that you pay in kilos. And that gives us 0.99. So 0.99 per kilo is the price of potatoes in London. So now that you have the price of potatoes in Dublin and London, where you can compare them, you can see that the price of potatoes in Dublin is far more expensive than the price of potatoes in London. So that means London is cheaper. All right, question 5. Nick bought a new car. Each year, the car depreciates in value by 12%. Work out the number of years it takes for the car to halve in value. Right, so we know that it's a depreciation question and the percentage that it decreases by is 12%. Let's start off by saying that the new car price, so new car price, is equal to X. So if the price of a car is equal to X when it's new, what is the price going to be if it's half of that? We can say half X is half the value. Now, some of you may not be too comfortable using X or half X, so what I'll continue to do is use an actual value that you can relate to make this question a little bit easier to understand. So let's say, to make easier to understand, we are going to use a real value for the price of the car when it's new. Let's say £1,000. So that means the half value of that is going to be £500. So how many years does it take for the car to go from £1,000 to £500? We can use our formula for finding percentage increase or decrease, which is original amount times by the multiplier to the power of n, and we want to make that equal to 500. So that's going to be £1,000, which is our original amount, times by our multiplier. Now the multiplier, if it depreciates in value by 12%, that means 12% take away from 100 is 88%, and the multiplier is going to be 0.88. So it's going to be 0.88 to the power of n, which is the number of years. So the number of years it takes for this car value to go down to £500. So what you can do now is just put in some values on your calculator for the value of n until you get close to 500. So let's start off by doing to the power of 3. And when you do to the power of 3, you get 681.47. That's not 500, so you keep going. Let's do it to the power of 5, a little bit more than that. You could do 4 if you wanted to. I just chosen 5, and 5 gives me 527.73. which is coming closer to the value of 500, but I'm going to check to see if 6 is any closer. So when I do to the power of 6, I get £464.40. So that means that between years 5 and 6, the car depreciates its value in half. Because it doesn't happen after 5 years, because after 5 years it's still £527, it's not exactly half, we will say that it happens between 5 and 6 years. So therefore it happens during the 6th year. So 6 is our answer. Okay, so question 4. we are told that A to C is the ratio 1 to 6 and B to C is the ratio 2 to 5. Find the ratio A, B, C, giving your answer in its simplest form. Let's start off by writing A to C. We know that this is 1 to 6. And we know that B to C is the ratio 2 to 5. So what we want to do is find a common ground. Now both of them have a C. So we can multiply the 6 and the 5 together and get a common multiple. So if we do 6 times by 5, we get 30. So how does this become 30? We times this by 5. And how does this become 30? We times by 6. So we also have got to multiply the other ratio in A to C by 5, and we have to multiply the other ratio in B to C by 6. So 1 times 5 is 5, and of course this is 30, and 2 times 6 is 12, and of course this is 30. So if we were writing down the ratios together now, so A, B, and C, for A we have 5, for B we have 12, and for C we have 30. And there you have your answer. And if you want to make this in its simplest form, you need to divide by a common factor. But 5, 12, and 30 do not have anything that can divide into all of them. So that is your simplest form. Okay, so question 3, simplify a to the power of 9 times by a to the power of 4. So what we do here is we just add the powers together. So 9 plus 4, that gives us a to the power of 13. So a to the power of 13 is our answer. Onto this one. Now the power here is going to impact on the 4, the b squared, and the c. So on the 4, it's going to be 4 cubed. On the b, we're going to have 2 and that 3 outside. And for the c, it's just going to take the power on. So 4 cubed gives us 64. And here for the b, we just multiply those powers out. So we get b to the power of 6 and c cubed. So our answer is 64, b to the power of 6 and c cubed. Finally, part C, simplify d to the power of 9 divided by d to the power of 4. With division, you are going to take the powers away. So d to the power of 9 minus 4 gives us d to the power of 5. Question 2. A number is rounded to 2 decimal places and the result is 0.18. Work out the error interval. So 0.18 has been rounded. So we know that it has been rounded to 2 decimal places. So the upper bound is going to be 0.185 and the lower bound is going to be 0.175. So 0.175 is going to be the lower and 0.185 is going to be the upper. I have a video on this called upper and lower bounds on my channel, as I do with many of the other topics that we have gone through. So please do go and check out the playlist on my channel. And lastly, question number 1. Describe fully the single transformation that maps triangle A on triangle B. So you can see that A has become bigger, which means that the transformation is an enlargement. So enlargement. Now the question carries 2 marks, so we need to put down more information. For example, what is the scale factor of this enlargement and where has it been enlarged from? Now to find the scale factor, very easy, we can just take one of the sides here and compare it to the other side. So we know that we have 2 squares here and we have 4 squares there. So therefore 4 divided by 2 is 2. So the scale factor is 2. Now where has it been enlarged from? In order to do this, you simply draw lines through each corresponding vertex, the corners, and find out where it originates from. So let's start off with this one. So there, there, and there. Now you can clearly see that all of those lines meet at this point, which is 6 and minus 7. So it has been enlarged by a scale factor of 2 from 6 minus 7. And that is your answer. Hope you've enjoyed this lesson. If you haven't done so already, I would really appreciate if you could just subscribe to the channel. It really helps me and supports me in making more videos like this for you. I'll also be releasing paper-free solutions for this, so stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome to this lesson. We will be going over paper 2, the calculator paper for the 2022 GCSE Maths Higher Tier. This paper has been prepared by Maths Genie, so kudos to them. And this paper has been prepared. This paper has been prepared. This paper has been prepared. This paper goes through all the topics that you need to know for paper 2